Okay, now the second presentation is entitled Mercury, a software based on clustering for computer-assisted composition, and will be presented by Brian Martínez Rodríguez from Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, Polytechnic University of Valencia. So you can start.
Yeah. Well, good day. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for bringing this opportunity. So, first of all, I have to apologize Vicente. It has been impossible for him to come there. He was in the first day, but now he's not there. So, I'm going to speak by both too. So, let's start about our program. Mercury is our program for computer-assisted composition. So first of all, which is the approach of our computer-assisted composition? Where we have worked on a symbolic point of view. So it's restricted to conventional notation for Western music. So we are not going on, we are not working on electroacoustic music, for example, or we are not working in extended techniques, for example, despite the fact that all that kind of aspects can be incorporated in the future in our program. But as it is in an initial state, we are working only to that conventional notation. So symbolic point of view and conventional notation. Which is the idea? The main idea is that the computer is going to provide the composer new music material. So the composer input some material and the computer is going to work on new material. In this case, transitions. So transitions for a composer is something always hard because you can imagine a beautiful melody, you can imagine an interesting rhythm or harmonies, etc. But the problem is what I'm going to do with all this material. It's the great problem of composition. So Mercury is going to help the composer with this effect. In some minutes we are going to get deeper these explanations. So which are the basic possibilities that we have implemented in this first version of the program? Well, we are working with melodic transitions on the first part. So we can create, well, the program we will create transitions between two different melodies, one initial and another is final. So we will have soft, or more or less soft, transition between these two steps. Another possibility is harmonic transition, exactly the same but with chords. And finally, there is the possibility to create rhythmical transition, only with rhythm. In this case, just a line that represents some rhythm. There are other possibilities that we can work on, but we are not going to speak of them in this presentation. Maybe if there are time enough, we can, or maybe the coffee break. But we could also work with spectral transitions. What is spectral transitions? These transitions with timbre, so related with the previous talk. We can also incorporate the timbre as a static number of partials and create transitions. Also, we can create transitions between tuning systems that can be very interesting for music, for electroacoustic music, for example, or music with instruments that the tuning is possible to be changed on real time. So we can also create that kind of transitions. Or any musical aspect that can be mapped into our Q metric space. But well, we are focused on this talk only on these three aspects: melodic, harmonic, and rhythmical transitions. Let's continue. Some preliminary concepts. How can we map the music characteristics of a melody and rhythm and harmony, etc.? First of all, we are going to use the MIDI pitch number in order to map the pitch of a melody. I'm sure that all of you know this MIDI pitch number. We can also have used the frequency, the sevenths, etc. But because of simplicity reasons, only the MIDI pitch number. The intensity number is going to be also represented by the MIDI velocity number. You can see in this table which are the values that we have selected in order to represent when it's a pianissimo or where it's a fortissimo, what kind of number we'll have. Another complicated aspect that can have very different approaches is how to represent silence. It's non-trivial. At this point, we are representing silence with another extra value that can have 0 or 1 or intermediate steps. And also, is it possible to represent articulation in a similar way? So accents, staccato, marcato, etc. can also be incorporated. In fact, in the examples that we are going to see in a few minutes, you can see melodies with accents, with articulations. And the software is able to work with them. And finally, duration. Well, we are working with a relative duration coefficient. What means relative? It means that the unity is the whole. So, thanks to this formula, we can calculate exactly which is the duration of any figure, rhythmical figure of any melody, for example. I will try to explain it. This part of the formula represents if it's a whole, a half, a quarter, a quaver, semiquaver, etc. Just by giving 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to this fraction. P is the number of dots. So imagine that you have this quaver with 1 dot. You have to substitute there P by the value of that, by the number of dots that this element has. And finally, C up to D up to C, sorry, represent a tablet. If you have 3 up to 2, so the value is represented by 2 up to 3. So mixing all together and making the summatory of all the tied notes that you can have, you can calculate this duration coefficient. It was presented 2 years ago in Mexico in this paper, but well, this is an important formula I wanted to explain again. You can have here an example. This quarter note tied to a semiquaver will have this value. The second will have this other value. The third one, which is tied with the first of the tuplet, will have exactly this value. And the last one, all of this. If you add together all the 4, you have 1, exactly 1. So it's how can we split. Well, I hope that this example is illustrative. Well, let's continue. Now we have to talk about the definitions. Obviously, these definitions can be expanded into more complex definitions, but let's start with something simple in the beginning. So, what is a melody? And this is very important. We are going to represent a note, but a number of key characteristics. Okay. The first, the most simple way will be with pitch and duration, for example, but we can incorporate pitch, intensity, and duration. We can extend it. We could incorporate, for example, the attack, or we could incorporate the articulation, etc. So it's going to be represented in a metric space of R with Q dimension, with the dimension Q represents the number of characteristics that we are going to use for represent a note. So if this is a note, a melody is a sequence of notes. And this is very important. It's not a set of groups, because there is an order. Because music has a natural order because of time. So this is very important, because afterward we are going to use clustering processes. But these clustering processes are going to be applied to sequences. not to data sets. So there is the order. This is a key point in this presentation. So a melody is a sequence of notes. Okay, well, we can, yes?
I don't understand. And what is the onset?
What is what then?
Usually, a very important parameter of a note is the onset, is the time when it starts. Yes,
The time.
the time when it starts. Where
No,
do
there's
you?
no, there is no time. We simply use the duration. So it's a chain of durations.
So there is no pause in between two notes.
There's no pause.
There is no
Pause.
Pause.
Rest.
a rest. There is no rest.
Pause.
So we have
Yes. Yes, the rest can be incorporated also with another extra dimension, for example. So a note can be also rest. Okay, so I should have put there. It's a good observation, obviously. Yes, so you could have note, rest, note, etc. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a very important point. Okay, we can continue with this definition to, for example, harmony. What can be a harmony? A harmony can be a harmony of k notes, for example. Imagine you have a k value for 4. Is the usual number of notes that can have per sequences. Well, a chord is defined by k number of MIDI pitches value. So, exactly the same, and harmony is a sequence of chords. It's exactly the same. So, you can extend that definition. You can understand that we are going to work with sequencing of points, and each point is going to represent sometimes a harmony, sometimes a rhythm, sometimes a melody, but it also could represent a partial, could represent etc. because it's a vectorial representation. It has limitations, but well, it can work with it. And finally, rhythm. Rhythm is more simple. We can represent a rhythm as a sequence of rhythmical elements, and also a rhythmical element should be defined by 3 basic characteristics, which is the duration coefficient, the silence, and the MIDI velocity. For example, we could also incorporate the accents, etc. to the rhythm. So this is a very basic definitions that can be expanded as much as you want, as much as complex as you want. Okay, so these 3 definitions. How works our software? Where it's based on an algorithm that we presented 2 years ago in Mexico, which is this fuzzy order C-means algorithm. Well, it's a modification of fuzzy C-means algorithm. It's related to clustering processes, but the fuzzy part, not the hard version. So in this algorithm, we were able to incorporate the order in the processes cluster. So we can create clusterings, but in a sequence of elements. After that, I'm going to show you exactly the process with the program, so it will be easier to visualize how the process works. How can incorporate the order, or how we incorporated the order in the past, thanks to these neighborhood functions. This is a key point of this. After that, I will come back, but I think it's interesting to do that. This is the form that can have the usual neighborhood functions that we are working on. These functions are going to represent in this axis the element of one group, and the other axis is going to represent the element of the centroids of the clustering process. So, for example, here it's very easy to see that when the element is at the beginning, is strongly related with the first elements of the group of centroids, but is very weak, their relation with the last. But it happens exactly the opposite when you are trying to relate the last elements of your data sets with the last elements of your central set. It's strongly related. So this is a kind of ponderation that is going to be incorporated in the fuzzy clustering. Okay, so these neighborhood functions are very important for the program, and user can select. They are implemented and user can select. It's very important because the results that we are going to obtain depend strongly on these neighborhood functions. So as a consequence of that, the number of possible transitions increases and increases, so you will have a software that is going to give you a lot of different transitions from the same given material. Okay? Well, the idea is to represent the starting music as the initial sequence of centroids. After that, in the definition of the algorithm, it will be here. And our goal, which is the final music material, is going to be the data sequences that is going to be partitioned.
Sorry, I don't understand this expression. Ordered points. What are ordered points?
Order?
Is this one point or
Yes, a sequence. Or a sequence of points.
a sequence?
A sequence. Okay. Well, some definitions in order to speak about the algorithm. Our final sequence is going to be denominated by X. The centroids are going to be denominated by U. U is the partition matrix, so U contains the membership coefficients that represent the degree of membership that any point of our goal melody or goal sequence has from any centroid, because it's a fuzzy system. So this partition is full of elements that are not exactly zero. So any point belongs to all the centroids at the same time. So it's possible to belong. D is any distance function, and F is any of these neighborhood functions or any else that you could invent. Okay, so how does this algorithm works? It's better explained at the paper. But well, first of all, we have to choose any convenient function. So the software allows you to select which function do you want to work. After that, you have to choose any distant function. There is a lot of Manhattan function, Euclidean, of course, core, distance, etc. There is a lot of them. All of them are implemented in the program. You have to establish the fuzziness parameter. This is explained in Vicente in this book. Is a degree of fuzziness of the algorithm. So it can be greater than 1. And on the first step, we establish C, which is the number of centroids, equal to the number of points of our initial melody. After that, we have to initialize the centroids with the initial sequence. Okay, so normally in these clustering processes, the initialization of the centroids. 5 minutes. The initialization of the centroids is randomly, but here we have to initialize the centroids with these initial sequences. After that, I will have to have you have to use these formulas in order to calculate the position of these centroids that are going to be changing. And you can see how here is our apportation, how here the neighborhood function is going to implement the order. That's what we have to hurry up. I'm going to show you some examples. Well, here we have our goal melody. This is the melody that we want to achieve. Okay, we can play it. Let's play it a bit faster. Okay, so this melody is represented in blue. As you can see, the duration coefficient is a very simple representation. That's an example. And also the median pitch value. After that, this is our initial melody. It's in green. Okay, well, here we have established a kind of neighborhood function, and also the distance function is a curve function. Okay, well, when we generate the results, we obtain a lot of intermediate steps from the initial melody to the final melody. And finally, there's in fact a lot of different stages, and finally we reach this melody. You can see it graphically. Every time that the process finishes, it's going to incorporate a new element on this melody. So it creates a soft transition. You can see how when it finishes, it's going to add a new point. So finally, all the points have been reached. You can choose only the watching only the intermediate states, not all the states. So we have less results. Okay, you can see how this is the first melody. This is a problem. Well, it works surprisingly well with music by Olivier Messiaen, and also with atonal music. Because if you incorporate tonal music, all these tonal structures are going to be lost, because the process is a geometrical process. It's not the tonal rules are not incorporated in it, so you have to choose any convenient aesthetics. Okay, and finally you get your desire. Okay, I'm going to show you another possibility, which is the harmonic point of view. Okay, for example. Exactly. Well, imagine you have that relation of chords. Are 4 notes chord, so it will be represented in a 4-dimensional space. But they still are points, are sequences of points. And you have this initial sequence. Okay, well, so you can generate exactly the same, this transition. So you get a transition of all the intermediate states, etc. And it's equal with rhythm. Okay. But with rhythm happens exactly the same. We can okay, for example this and this is weak. And get all these intermediate steps. No problem. Just by concluding, these examples are exactly the same that I showed you in the algorithm. Well, the next step will be to create transitions between complete pieces of music. So it's a thing for all the composers. You give me only one section, the initial section, the final section, and the computer is able to create an infinite number of intermediate sequences. So it's great for composers. Well, the algorithm is too much efficient, especially if the melodies of the sequence are very different. It converges very quick. So it would be really interesting to decrease that efficiency, that slowing, in order to create softer transition. And also it's possible, thanks to this algorithm, to define a measurement of the similarity to editing distance, for example, because the number of transitions you need from one point to another point, it can be defined as a distance. So well, this is the thanks for the attention. This is the presentation of the algorithm. I've run out of time very soon, sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you have time for some questions? Okay.
Because
It is a tool for composers, but as you said, maybe some composers that want to use it doesn't know how to use computer software. So why don't, for instance, insert a fitness function? Because there are many possibilities in these transitions. So maybe a composer may be interested in selecting a way of choosing the best one.
There is one, yeah. It's very complicated. It's an interesting question because the problem with this algorithm is that you don't know what you are going to find. So you have to research. You have to just test all the possibilities, changing the fuzzy coefficient, changing the neighborhood function, changing the distance function, and obtaining different results.
Why not having the computer doing it for me?
Yes, it could be possible, but which is the best? Or which is the more interesting? How you can define it?
I think implicitly here you are defining a topological space or a manifold where you have different points and then you have curves which connect those points. I think it would be very helpful to visualize some kind of projection of this high-dimensional space so that people can see which type of geodesics or whatever they are taking.
Yeah.
And this is really a topological approach.
Yes.
It's not algebraic.
I think it's very interesting. In fact, in the melody example, you can see that you can see only the 2 dimensions. I thought only 3 dimensions, but in fact, you have extra dimensions. So maybe a perspective of that, in order to see exactly what you were talking to see this orbits, these trajectories, how which is the shape of them, and that'd be very interesting for this compositional purposes. I totally agree.
Is there any more questions? Okay, so thank you very much.